How you doing, Paul?
I am doing great.
Yeah, we just found out you have a ring light, and we are very excited about that. The lighting on your end is incredible.
Fantastic. Quite a ring light.
I know. Well, I don't even have a ring light, and I'm well, I guess I'm a millennial, not a Gen Z, but I really imagine a ring light is like the influencers and all that stuff. So I'm very excited to hear you have one. You're ready to go.
I'm what young people call a boomer. And it's, ring lights are not our thing.
But you have one. Like, you had one before the podcast. What did you use it for? Just like for interviews and stuff?
Yeah. No, somebody bought it for me.
Got it.
Probably Katie.
Yeah, probably a millennial or a Gen Z person.
Probably somebody, closer to your age.
Yeah.
Age. People my age don't have ring lights.
Yeah. Yep. All right. After that very important conversation.
Yes. We're setting the stage for what really is important. But this is important too.
Yes. I will go through the headlines from last week. We had a comprehensive story as our story one, basically explaining where NCI is now 100 days after President Trump's inauguration. We'll be diving into that story mostly for this podcast episode, so I won't get into too much detail now. But the short answer is that it's not doing great. So we'll definitely dive into that more. We had a guest editorial by George Weiner, basically talking about a similar thing, but a little bit more narrow in scope. He wrote about how moving CCSG review to NIH and the resulting loss of the site visit as part of the CCSG review process or application process would be detrimental to the specialness of cancer centers. And I say specialness because that was the headline. Well, he didn't say specialness. He said they are special. So kind of reworking that headline a little. Claire wrote a story about Vinay Prasad, who she very in an inspired move called a cyber iconoclast. He was named director of FDA's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. So we sort of went into, well, Claire really went into, and Paul went into sort of his history and what he stood for throughout his career, and maybe how that relates to how he will approach his position now. We had a guest editorial about the long-term health of working-age adult cancer survivors, and our In the Archive section this week covered a conversation with Walter Lawrence Jr., who was a giant in surgical oncology, and his thoughts on the effect of the National Cancer Act. He died in 2021. And just a heads up about that in the archives, it's kind of a special one last week because the Oral History with Lawrence is the first episode in the relaunch of the Cancer History Project podcast, which features archival content and interviews about the history of oncology. So after all that, we got through in the beginning piece. I'll pop it over to Paul to really just go over, what has happened at NCI. We wrote the story last week, and it was kind of a crazy thing to cover. I feel like I say that every week, but it was a crazy thing to sort of keep up with everything that was happening, even within this last week. So a lot happened, and I will let Paul start with that.
Well, one of the things about Walter Lawrence is really that interview was the beginning of the Cancer History Project. Rob Wynn and I sat down with him. It was really fantastic to just start getting the information and getting the oral histories together.
Yeah.
So we didn't call it Cancer History Project, but it was going to be a Cancer History Project. We talked about it. I
didn't know that. That's really cool.
No, it wasn't discussed, except a few of us sort of said, hey, we must do this. Mm-hmm. And it was just the timing was extraordinary because 50 years since the signing of the National Cancer Act. Mm-hmm. And it was just coming up. And look at where we are now.
Yeah.
It's National Cancer Act backwards, it seems.
Yeah. You want to explain what that means?
It's in reverse. It seems like a lot of things are very scary right now. Going back, do we want to do? Yeah, let's go back. Mary Lasker, after taking control of the American Cancer Society, realized that she was doing it wrong. And by the way, she set up the peer review system that later went to NIH.
Wow.
But she realized that she was doing it wrong because there's only so much that the American Cancer Society could do for cancer research. And research needed to happen. She saw that. And the only place to get the kind of money together that needed to be spent was the U.S. government, and she went after that with full force, and that is the National Cancer Act. What would Mary do right now? I don't actually. That's a great question. We should all be talking. We did run a piece, a really cool piece by Kevin Cullen, with kind of like, what would she do? We're all trying to channel her in some ways. I think the only thing that's not been done is we haven't heard from patients. People who are going to be affected, who are already affected. Some don't know they will be affected, but it's life and death for some of them. So I'm looking forward to hearing from patients. So
that's definitely going to be a priority for us, and has been. But I mean, it's tricky to try to cover, both the policy level thing and the patient. And I mean, I think that's definitely a priority for us, but it's something we're going to do more going forward. I think we had that one really good interview with Kelly Spill 2 weeks ago, last week. I don't even know now. But we definitely have more coming up soon.
Absolutely. And this is, I mean, everything we're going to talk about for the rest of this podcast is about how certain programs are doing. But programs are there for a reason, and that reason is patients, and patients are going to be harmed by a lot of this. Absolutely. And it's not a power plays. It's not about power plays. We cover power plays. That's kind of where we live. But I think we kind of need to expand our range, and we're doing it.
Well, that's what I mean. Just recenter on what the actual impact of all of this is, because we do get not lost, but we do kind of sink into the fact that we write for mostly oncologists or people in the field. That's our audience. But recentering in a time like this on what the actual effect of all of this is I think very important.
Absolutely. I'm wondering what happens to kids who might not be able to get in the clinical trial. Kids with cancer.
That's going to be a big story for this week.
I hope so. Some of this is going to be years away, and a lot of it is happening right now. So.
Yep. So let's dive into what actually is happening at NCI right now. That's probably a good transition. Do you want to take us through some of the things that we covered in the cover story last week, Paul?
I think what we tried to do was in the lead story was look at all of the events that are taking place and see what they point to. And it's kind of scary because let's look at really some of the points. NCI has killed the BSA, so that's a peer review question. NCI has eliminated its information arm, which is actually okay. So here's a bunch of government PR people. They're all gone. Okay, well maybe people don't really need to worry about it, but let's not lose sight of why it was there to begin with. It was there to begin with because under the National Cancer Act, NCI had the same authorities as NASA. Because if we're going to be doing a moonshot on cancer, and I'm talking about the first moonshot, we will go to the moon kind of thing, Kennedy kind of inspired. Well, you needed people at NCI who were going to do what people at NASA did, which is tell the story. But in this case, it's even more interesting because it's a PDQ.
Yep.
You know?
And the patient hotlines.
PDQ, it's patient desk PDQ is the data query. It's physicians use it. It's about levels of evidence. It's about what is scientific and what is not scientific. So imagine this. So you've gotten rid of peer review, you've gotten rid of physician data query, and you've gotten rid of people who can run the website for the National Cancer. So basically, without the communication arm, NCI is left incommunicado.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's also no registries, cancer registries, which, by the way, is a system of cancer registries that is the envy of the world. And it's being tossed overboard like so much garbage. And that is really unfortunate. So basically, we will not know whether we're winning the war on cancer, whether we're going to the moon or in the other direction.
What's the other direction? Into the earth?
I don't know. There's the systematic peer review that's going away. Plus, the cancer centers, which are a part of the National Cancer Act as well. So they just stopped reviewing cancer centers as a kind of a separate entity and eliminated the whole institution of a site visit, which is really important. Now, cancer centers are unlike, there are no other, there's no equivalent to them elsewhere at NIH.
Yeah.
So everything that had made NCI separate and special is being stripped away, and nobody seems to really know. And nobody seems to, since we haven't heard from patients.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're going to wake up.
Yeah. And I mean, people in the field are definitely awake. I think it's sort of this moment of shock. And then, how do we organize how do we organize to take some action to protect what is so, again, special about cancer centers and NCI and the National Cancer Act and things like that? I mean, that's what George Weiner said in his article. He was explaining, why they're so important, why these site visits are so important. Because, outside of oncology, people don't necessarily know why, right? Like, you have to really be able to defend it.
No, you have to understand the history of the field. And the history of the field is the government has a very important role to play here. Yeah. And the other part of the history of the field is that this, meaning the National Cancer Act of 1971, is the first time that a country declared a war on a disease. First and only time. And nothing like it ever happened. And the institutions are different and interesting. And by the way, also, the importance of cancer research to within the U.S. government and its uniqueness within NIH. Let's not forget that either.
Yeah.
The National Cancer Institute is the only institution that has, and the only institute or center that has an NCAB where members are appointed by the president.
Really? I didn't realize that. Wow.
Others have these councils, and the councils are named by the institute director, I believe.
Wow.
So, there is an NCAB. They could not get rid of NCAB, but they did get rid of the BSA, which I have personally seen BSA save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars by just saying, nah, this is just won't do. Give us something better. Yeah.
Do you want to just explain for people who aren't super familiar what they're saying no to?
Well, there were specific cases of it, and we covered them usually. And a lot of times things just would be kind of NCI would self-censor. They wouldn't take it to NCAB because they'd know that they'd get slaughtered with an NCAB. Gosh. Yeah, there was a wonderful case of the proteomics whatever it was program that Andrew von Eschenbach tried to get through, and it kind of went through, but on the second try, and the first time they actually said, no, this is not science. This needs to be fixed. This needs to be fixed. And
well, that's actually, it's like programs and research priorities, right? That's sort of what BSA, like what level of things are they deciding on usually, or giving advice about?
Extramural research, all the big programs and extramural research would go through BSA, and it's interesting that the BSA was formed by Rick Klausner out of the extramural advisory boards of each of the divisions.
Okay.
So each of the divisions had an intramural and an extramural arm, and all of the intramural arms were the Board of Scientific Counselors, and that remains. But the BSA is the extramural.
Got it.
And a situation where peer review doesn't, you benefit from peer review.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a good thing.
Yeah, especially efficiency-wise, right?
Well, yeah. And people, these were always fun discussions.
Yeah.
To listen to BSA. Yeah. I mean, you've sat through a few of them.
Yeah.
It was always fun. You go, you talk to people especially before COVID, that was fun. But, post-COVID, how much money do you think they saved by getting rid of BSA? I think it was $10.
You're like tens of dollars.
Tens of dollars worth of take.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, it's actually probably not true. It's probably a little bit more, but it's
not significant, yeah. Especially considering the value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is concerning, but we are kind of like seeing pieces of it that nobody else cares about, except that if you're really deep within oncology. But what happens next is all of this is going to come down on the actual people, the actual patients, very quickly, and then the whole field gets transformed, and this whole political situation gets transformed. Because who wants to, name? I don't believe that House members or Senate members of either party want to be confronted by cancer patients who are saying, "Hey, you're killing me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not going to stand. I'm sorry. This is,
Yeah. Lawmakers, regardless of party, want their constituents to, not be dying of cancer. I feel like that's a pretty easy cause to get behind.
And we're totally nonpartisan, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
for sure,
it's just when you see something being destroyed that shouldn't be destroyed. And one of the interesting things, the most interesting quotes we got in last week's issue of the Cancer Letter was by someone who didn't want to be identified by name, but this person said that not having an NCI director is probably a part of the plan. It certainly looks like it. So there's no one to stand up for NCI right now.
I have that quote here. I mean, you said it pretty perfectly, but just so people have context.
Yeah, just read it.
The quote is, "I have reached the conclusion that the lack of a director is very purposeful so they can finish the reorganization, and pass the new budget before any opposing advocate is in place. It would be impossible for an NCI director to not advocate against the cuts in particular. Solution, don't have anyone in the seat."
There you go.
Yeah. Very well said. A little scary. But yeah, I'm not a little scary, very scary.
Well, it's a good time to be a journalist.
Oh my gosh, back to that. It is a good time to be a journalist. It's not a great time to be a human, but
not enjoying myself right now watching this being destroyed. Something that we cover and understand why it's there
and care about.
Maybe, however. If you want an even bigger picture, if you can put up with that, the even bigger picture is that the system that we have now probably would not have been built de novo. It produced advances that we have right now. But knowing what we know now, we would probably want an even better system. And would be able to construct it. So really, a reconstruction is what a lot of my friends that I talk to, especially with alcohol involved, are setting their sights on.
Yeah.
They're basically saying, let's stick around. And that, I mean, I want to be there for that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a silver lining. So a pretty exciting one. Yeah.
Well, it's, assuming that we get through this. But I think one crucial element for getting through this is to hear from patients and to make sure that people who make policy hear from patients.
Yep.
And they will.
Yep.
It's inevitable because, as I said, some of the results are like depth charges, but some of them are immediate.
Yeah.
You know, some will go off in a year or two, but some are happening right this instant.
Yep.
And that's the ones. Also, you kind of need leadership. You need a face to this.
Yeah.
What you need is a Danny Thomas type of situation starting to happen.
Yeah.
You need someone to lead it.
Yeah. Do you want to explain who Danny Thomas is for?
Yeah. No, he was a comedian who started St. Jude, and he had television shows where he would have kids with cancer and raise money for it. So, you know.
Yep. Yeah. A public facing.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a comedian.
Yeah. That's actually in the job requirements.
That would be great if you know anybody, you know. I think we should probably talk about Vinay Prasad.
Yes. Wow. I forgot. I got so lost in the story. Yes, we should talk about Vinay Prasad. He has been named director of CBER. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Central Biologics Evaluation and Research at FDA? Yeah. A lot of us were waiting to see where Vinay would end up in this administration.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know or have a hunch?
I was absolutely certain he would end up either as NCI director or as CBER director or maybe FDA commissioner.
Are you serious? I did not realize you thought that.
I mean, absolutely. We all knew it. Everybody knew it. It was like, where will Vinay end up?
Wow. That's crazy.
And he ended up in one of those places that we all expected him to end up in.
Yes.
Well, he's something of a social media star. Yeah, he was also former NCI fellow. He is a skeptic about many things, and being a skeptic, by the way, is a good thing. He has taken it a little further than most people in the field, at least further than the mainstream. Well, of course, being a skeptic means you're outside the mainstream anyway, if you're good at it. Some of what he did is we covered him his entire kind of path very closely over the years. And I'm kind of happy to see a lot of our old coverage being discovered by folks as we look at usage statistics and what people are reading. And a lot of people are reading our back coverage of Prasad.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is probably important is what he did in Oregon, where he chaired a committee of the Medicaid board, of the health board, whatever it's called. It's in the story. It's accurate in the story. That tried to get rid of the benefit of next-gen sequencing for Medicaid beneficiaries in the state, which is largely symbolic because you're really talking about a very small number of people, right? Because, Medicare is for the elderly, Medicaid is for the younger people, and how many of the younger people get cancer within one state and how many people would be affected, that probably was fairly small. But the symbol of the whole thing, that you create, you say that this doesn't do you, and that this is not useful, next-gen sequencing. And next-gen sequencing is really the foundation of where medicine is going now.
Yeah.
So now Seberg processes a lot of the applications for pharma and biotech industries that point to immunotherapies.
Yeah.
So, and cellular therapies. So some of the most exciting stuff will be going through him if he doesn't believe truly in all of this. I don't know how much of it has been resolved. He certainly deserves the benefit of the doubt now. And, I've reached out to him as we were doing the story, and he hasn't responded. I'll probably reach out to him again. He is, it will be very interesting to see what he is thinking about all of this. And, his most recent talk within FDA was apparently was not the firebrand, let's get rid of next-gen sequencing, let's get rid of immunotherapies are not effective, that kind of stuff. And also, we must always have the overall survival for approval. He's never really, that can't stay.
Yeah.
So,
not within the position.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have overall survival.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice to have it.
Yeah.
But you can't tease it out from the number of lines of therapy that the patient generally has throughout the lifetime.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. But if FDA goes the way of what we're seeing within NIH, that too will cause some concern. And also the industry right now is probably trying to figure out what to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll continue to cover it. Especially I'm eager to hear about what Prasad's initial, actions are and stuff like that. And obviously what's happening in NCI and NIH more broadly in the coming weeks. And we'll continue to cover it. We will be on it. Yes, we have a lot of exciting stories coming up as well that are not necessarily policy related. So we have a nice smorgasbord of things to read in the coming issues. So
that is what it is. I like smorgasbord. It's got herring in it usually and all sorts of Jewish food.
Love it. So that or a charcuterie board. Take your pick.
Charcuterie board may not have as much Jewish.
Probably doesn't have herring, but. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. I'll see you next week.
All right. It's a great time to be a journalist.
I didn't even feed you the line that time. You did that all by yourself.
I know. It just felt good.